Welcome back to News Plus. My next guest is no stranger to controversy. Sinclair Skinner was accused of putting up racially divisive posters depicting Jim Graham as Grahamzilla, the black business killer, many years ago. But most recently, he was embroiled in a controversy surrounding government contracts that former Mayor Adrian Fenty gave to his frat brothers. Welcome back to News Plus. We're joined by Sinclair Skinner. He's a neighborhood activist, a businessman in Washington, D.C. Well, thanks for joining us. Just as a little bit of a history of who you are, a local businessman in Washington, D.C. You went to college with Adrian Fenty, a fraternity brother. When he ran for mayor, you worked on his campaign. Prior to that, you had some dealings on Georgia Avenue in the business district. You had a publication, the Georgia Avenue Defender. Is that what it was called? I recall you and I first talked years ago about some controversies about some posters that were put up about Jim Graham.
Yes, sir. Wow.
And that seems like a long time ago.
It does.
But you were really, even then, an outspoken community activist. I mean, let's go back to that day. There were people who, I guess, either loved you or hated you back then along Georgia Avenue because you were very outspoken about some of the things that Jim Graham was doing with regard to liquor licenses in the neighborhood.
Jim Graham being white or gay never had anything to do with our issues. Our issues had something to do with corruption and being fair. I think gentrification is something that I saw as being problematic, displacing people, but in many ways I was a gentrifier. I was somebody who came from a background with, you know, my parents still married, come from a suburban background, moving into the district, but the engagement had to be constructive. It shouldn't be, you know, you feel displaced and I feel like, you know, threatened. It should be a discourse, but I think people like Graham and other folks, they allowed that tension to stay there and didn't do anything to address it. And we attempted to do that, and I think in many ways we did it the wrong way. I think. Now,
are you talking about the posters?
The posters, because
because you had these posters that depicted Graham in less than a flattering manner.
It was Grahamzilla.
Right.
It was Grahamzilla, the black business killer. And we really did think that he was going after black businesses disproportionately. But what happens when you do things that way, you alienate folks in other communities. There are many white community members who thought Graham wasn't a good person either. But as soon as you interject race like that, then they feel like, well, maybe he's attacking all white people. And in no way was that the message, but that was the distraction that came out of that.
Let's fast forward then. Mayor Fenty, you worked on his campaign,
yes,
as we noted. He becomes mayor, and there becomes this issue with contracts that the mayor's administration awarded for refurbishing park and rec facilities throughout the city. And so this became the big frat brother controversy in the Fenty administration that really dogged him throughout the campaign. The council investigated this. They hired an independent attorney, Bob Trout, who released his report after the election, and I know you find that to be suspicious. And the report pretty much exonerates Mayor Fenty. Does that get us up to speed?
Absolutely. This city council, unfortunately, had to me, an orchestrated plan to try to discredit the mayor. They couldn't discredit his work. His work spoke in many ways volumes. What they tried to do was discredit him by allegations and smears.
You know, a lot of people look at you and will sit here and look at you and say, you know, while the Trout report exonerated Fenty, it certainly didn't exonerate you or Mr. Kareem. And in fact, there's indications from the Trout report that, and I believe one of the quotes is that either, you know, in a best case scenario, there were undisclosed conflicts of interest. At worst case scenario, it was an unlawful scheme. And they point to more than $500,000 in overbilling that you were responsible for, where they say the taxpayers were ripped off to the tune of $500,000. So there are people out there who are looking at you and saying, well, yeah, maybe Fenty was clean, but here's a guy that has baggage and might have broken the law yourself, pointing the finger at the mayor. How do you respond to that?
See, and again, that's a part of what they were doing, smearing. And at no time did I overcharge, did we do anything unlawful.
Well,
these are,
you know,
but these are allegations. No, these are allegations. It's the same. It's the same investigation that they use to say Adrian allegedly.
But it's the investigation that you're pointing to exonerating Mayor Fenty, and it shows that we'll take the Stanton Recreation Center. You hired a Maryland firm. You were given the contract to do some engineering work. You then subcontracted that work out to a Maryland firm. So these jobs went out of the district. You paid a Maryland firm $11,365. That firm then billed you that $11,000. You then billed Banneker, which is Omar Kareem, your frat brother's company, $17,900 for that work. Banneker then passed that bill on to the district for $19,000. So the work cost $11,000 to do. Taxpayers paid $19,000.
That's not true. And this is, again, that's a part of the smear campaign. What they do is take a piece of information here and say it costs $11,000 for this vendor, and they charge the district this. They don't include any of the other vendors that worked in it. They didn't include any other additional management, any of the additional work that had to be involved into that vendor's work. I think what was really incredible is that the people had to be subjected to an investigation like this for 18 months when there was real issues that need to be addressed in the DC government by council members who have enough ethics issues themselves, and they had the audacity to question a real business doing real work that's quality that we stand by. We didn't overbill. And
so the Trout report is just incorrect. When they say that you overbilled by $440,000, one of the quotes from the Trout report is, "This was a classic case of waste and abuse, and the markups were grossly excessive."
Right. That's a lie. That's not true. And the people that reviewed this information don't even have the expertise to even discern what.
Why aren't you suing Bob Trout?
No, don't get into my strategy now.
Okay, well, what is your strategy?
Don't get into my strategy. We're definitely looking at a bunch of options of handling this.
Well, Sinclair Skinner, we appreciate you being here. Clearly outspoken as always, and we appreciate you coming here. And we hope you'll come back and see us again on New-PLus.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity, man. Forever, I appreciate the opportunity to even say it.
Terrific. Well, thanks again. More of New-PLus right after this.